All right, I'm calling this meeting of the Oakville Public Library Board to order. It's Thursday, October 16th, 2025. First, I'd like to read our territory acknowledgements. Oakville Public Library is situated on the Treaty Number 14 and Treaty Number 22 treaty lands and territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation and the traditional territory of the Huron-Wendat and the Haudenosaunee. Oakville is currently home to many different First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. Regardless of where we come from, we are all interconnected through the land that we live on, water that we use, and air that we breathe. We are committed to a continuous learning journey and allyship. We seek to elevate Indigenous voices and lived experience to cultivate reconciliation in Oakville. All right, do we have any regrets this evening?
Yes, we do. We have Councillor Knoll, Councillor Chisholm, Meredith Burke, and Bill Smith as regrets this evening, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. All right, members of the board, are there any declarations of pecuniary interest tonight? Okay, seeing none. Our first regular item is confirmation of the minutes of the previous regular meeting, item 4.1. Do I have anyone to move that? Thank you, Rebecca. Rod, seconding. Are there any clarifications or questions? Okay, all in favor? That's carried. All right, on our consent agenda, we have the OPL board key agenda items, number 5.1, and the health and safety report, number 5.2. Are there any separations for those? No? Okay. Does anyone wish to move those items? No? Oh, Rod and Rebecca. Last call for questions? No? All in favor? That's carried. All right, we have no confidential consent items. And moving on to our discussion agenda, item 7.1, the 2026 OPL operating budget.
Recall that we went through the draft budget at the September meeting. The board had no feedback or changes, so we are bringing it forward as we presented last month for approval by the board to be submitted for consideration as part of the town's 2026 budget process. Happy to take questions if there's any.
Okay, so no changes.
No.
Okay. All right, members of the board, do we have any further questions or remarks? No? Okay. All right. Would anyone like to move item 7.1? Celso, seconder. Avis. All right, last call. This is it. This is going to council. No? Okay. All right, all in favor? Okay, that's approved. Okay, and number 7.2, the OPL capital budget for 2026.
Also brought before the board in September. I will note that in September, we still had the separation out of the OPL strategic plan and the master plan recommended strategies. Mm-hmm. But in this one, we did merge the two as we have brought to the board in August. But other than just the confirmation of that combined project, there is no other changes.
Okay. My memory may be failing me on this point, but it looked like it was 302,100, and I thought it was 300,000.
We did put in 3,000, but finance adjusted for inflation.
Okay, thank you. All right, board, are there any questions or other clarifications on item 7.2? No, okay, we're breezing through this. All right. Okay, can I have a mover, please? Rod, seconded by Rebecca. Last chance. Okay, all in favor? And that's carried. Super, thank you. Okay, item 7.3, 2026 OPL goals.
So every year we bring forward annual goals for the organization for the board to set. So this is our proposed goals for 2026, looking for feedback, whether the board likes what we've brought forward, whether they feel that they're missing something. We did target three main categories, which is capital projects, because that'll be a significant portion of next year. That would include the builds as well as the service strategy and strategic plan. And then would also include strategic projects, growth, staff growth and engagement, as well as a personal goal by myself. And so just to go over it, I will flag that We did assign some timelines to these, but I did make a note that these timelines are subject to change, and that when we get budget approval for some of these pieces, as well as next steps for different projects, we'll bring back an updated timeline if they need to shift. I'm thinking for New Central, as well as the service strategy and strategic plan. When that gets out to RFP, and when we get it going, there may be some shifting, so we'll update those. But those will be major pieces of our work next year. So I definitely wanted to have that reflected. We also wanted something in there that really spoke to, it isn't, goal to get 60 Mile open and then we're done, right? We wanted something to be like, we want it open and we want it to have the impact that we've planned for around those unique features, the new school-age STEM space. Like, how are we really going to try and activate that space? We're going to run some new types of services in there, and so we wanted to make sure that was a goal. The service strategy and strategic plan will be a major piece, not only for us, but for the board next year. So we wanted that represented. We also wanted to continue to grow on the staff engagement pieces. There is a report further on that kind of highlights, and you will hopefully have seen some connections that we're trying to make between the budget, our goals, and those actions that we're trying to bring out of the staff engagement survey piece. So happy to take feedback, questions, comments, and then we'll bring them back in November, hopefully for approval. That way we can hit the ground running in January.
Thanks, Tara. Members of the board, do we have any questions or remarks on the OPL goals for 2026?
Yeah.
Rebecca.
Sorry, I didn't see that. I was just curious, who's like the main owner of these goals? Tara, is it you? Yeah.
Ultimately, yes.
Yeah. And then, because I know and then you would have a team under each of these that kind of, okay, cool. Thank you. And sorry, and the inclusion of your personal goal here under like the overall goals, do you usually do that? I don't remember seeing that.
So I did used to.
Yeah.
We stopped at one point, just because there was some concern brought up about it being a personal goal. But at the same time, I felt that this goal in particular was one that was appropriate to bring forward to the board, particularly around the service strategy, strategic plan, the opening of 16 Mile. Our organization's undergoing a lot of change. And a gap that we've really seen is appropriate change management. And so this is a skill set that we're looking to do, hopefully with me, but also through the entire organization. Our new manager of strategic initiatives, who I announced in September, also has a really strong change management background. And so I felt it was appropriate to bring here.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rebecca. Salsa? Yep.
On the first objective of service strategy and strategic plan, it says something about ensure that the planning process engages at least 1,000 residents, including underrepresented groups and non-users. How do you measure the underrepresented groups?
So that'll really be part of focusing in on how we write the RFP as part of the community engagement piece, and ensuring that we're running specific, I want to say working groups, but that isn't quite the word I'm looking for, but particular sessions to invite community members that we've identified as underrepresented groups. So we would work with the consultant to identify what those groups look like, and then do targeted outreach to those groups in order to ensure we're meeting them.
So I see how you would target them.
Yeah.
But how do you know that you actually got them in?
Yeah, so some of that is through, if we do a broader survey through demographics, that we can get through that, but also, engaging some of our community groups to actually have in-person or virtual town hall or gathering where we can bring them into the space and have that kind of one-on-one, because it is a balance of, surveys are really great for giving us really broad themes that we can work on, but I do think that for the sake of the service strategy, there's a deeper understanding that'll be needed, and so we will probably have like small focus groups is the word I was thinking about, in order to target those different kind of groups and really ask targeted questions about the needs of that particular group.
Yeah, no, I'm totally cool with the goal here. I think it's a very legitimate one. I was just worried about the logistics of it, because you can't ask at the door, are you an underrepresented, right? So you need some sort of a way to do that. Otherwise,
Yeah.
it's going to be hard for you to report completion on this.
It is really going to be about us leveraging some of our community connections,
Yeah.
working with, community development, Halton, the newcomers groups, the Caribbean, the Oakville Caribbean Society. It's leveraging them in order to hopefully facilitate focus groups that reach those groups that we're looking for.
Thank you. And I have another question, if I may. On staff growth, I see that you connected with the engagement survey, so thank you for that. The engagement survey had 3 areas of focus, right? The third one was collaboration across groups?
Yes. Yeah.
And that's the one I didn't see. That's always the most difficult one, I get it. But that's the one I didn't see here, so I was wondering if there's an opportunity to do something in that regard.
Yeah, we can definitely look at that. One of the things, and the board would remember, I think it was last month, we brought an updated professional development, because we're introducing procedures around organizational groups and having working groups, and that's kind of what we're looking as one way to try and drive collaboration, by having working groups working on particular areas that would come from both branches and services related to that. So that was really the umbrella that we were looking to address that piece to it. And I think we just struggled with what's the goal for that? Is it how many working groups? We are slightly limited with it. I was thinking we were struggling with what goal, but we can go back and maybe take another look, or maybe what some other pieces could be.
As a suggestion for you, employee rotation might be a good way to achieve that.
What is, sorry?
Employee rotation. If people are willing to sort of take a job at another
Yeah.
group, then they sort of cross-pollinate, and they bring their relationships with them, and then eventually you get more cross-collaboration, but it's hard to achieve.
It is, although it'll be interesting. One thing we are going to bring, I think it's in November, one of the benefits of opening a brand new branch and hiring such significant levels of people is that there's going to be a lot of movement.
There you go.
In terms of the cascade, because people are moving to 16 Mile, people are moving branches to fill gaps from the people that are moving, and so I do think it's an opportunity for us to identify that, and then how do we really leverage those movements and to create that
Right.
collaboration. So,
And even from corporate functions to like the branch and vice versa, those are even harder, but
Yeah.
that helps a lot too.
yeah, those skill sets are very different.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, also. Rod?
Thanks, Andrew. I just wondered, capital projects goal 1, it refers to by December 31st, 2026, the design should be final. Have you a sense that might be earlier than that, or do you think we might be still plowing away right through to November, December to get that finalized?
That, we will only know that after, so we are coming back to the board in January with a report around New Central. It will go to council in February. It will depend on the decisions of council in February. So we are expecting the board to make a recommendation in January to the board, to the council in February. And then depending on what the path is coming out of February, we could be done earlier, we could not.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think it's important to note that there's a big asterisk on that one,
Yes.
if it
yeah.
comes to it, yeah.
Yeah, that timeline very much in flux. We will solidify it
Dependent
into
on
next year. Yeah.
external factor, yeah. David?
Just a question on the, under capital projects, the activations at 16 Mile. I'm just trying to understand, like, as a benchmark, 30 activations, how does that compare to, and activation is like an event, I'm assuming? Or how do you define activation, and how did you come up with 30 compared to that activities at other branches?
No, absolutely, and we can actually look at fleshing out what a definition of is activation, because we are using it in a different way at 16 Mile. Because we do not have the staffing to drive in-person staff monitored programs all the time. So what we're actually looking to do is introduce more passive programming and passive activations that complement, our staff-led programs. And we've seen success at this in a number of different libraries, and some of that is as simple as, putting out a STEM challenge and putting it on the board and having the equipment, and then parents can go in and we change it regularly with that. You can go in and be like, how high can you make parachute guy fly? and you have your little air compressor, and you've got all these like pieces. They can make parachutes. They have, you know, their little Ken dolls, and probably not Ken dolls anymore, little action figures, and then, you know, parents and the child can kind of work together, and then they can record, you know, what their distance is, and then they can, but it's very much self-led activations around a STEAM theme. And so we are looking at how also we would rate that, right? So we're looking at different options so that when people participate in it, they can actually leave, you know, a very simple feedback for us. They're not having to fill out a full survey in order to understand, you know, what of these activations are hitting the mark, what are not hitting the mark. So it's both introducing, you know, 30 that I think could hit that above 70%. Excellent.
Cool idea.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thanks, Avis. I have two questions. First, on the service strategy and strategic plan, I just want to think about the timing a little bit. If we're sort of kicking off this process in Q1, and then with the expectation that we'll have a plan and maybe going out to collect data in Q2, and it says under point 1, we'll have engaged everyone by the end of Q3, and then the next one says we'll secure board approval for implementation in Q4. That it feels like there's very little margin there for, you know, absorbing, interpreting, planning, and then actually beginning the implementation process.
Yeah, so those, to be fair, both of those focus on the service strategy, less on the strategic plan.
Okay.
So it isn't, I don't think it's unreasonable for us to have the community consultation at the end of Q3 and then have the service strategy, which hopefully will follow quickly behind it because we need it in advance of the strategic plan. So I've left these in there. I'm actually hoping that these will be earlier, but one of the things that's out of our control is how fast we get that through purchasing at the beginning of the year, because budget gets approved, all the departments slam the purchasing department with all these RFPs. Right. They need to get out. It is our hope that everything will be drafted. We just need to do the paperwork. And it takes approximately anywhere between 3 to 6 months to go through the RFP process. So we're hoping more for the 3 months, which will allow us to hit that, but it is one thing that we'll adjust once we understand where that we are in the queue come purchasing. But I'm also very aware that the strategic planning process next year and how that could possibly go with the board's end of term. And so that is one of the things that we'll be looking for as part of the RFP is very clear timelines and what may overlap in terms of what needs to be decided with the service strategy and how that kind of applies to the strategic plan and where we can merge some of those processes in order to move the process forward without being, I don't think one has to be completely done before we start the other. I think there is some overlap in there. But again, that's one of the things that we'll be looking for guidance from consultants who have experience about running these types of projects.
Okay, well, I appreciate that you've thought through that. On that note, is there, you know, anything that can be done sort of pending the budget approval, but to sort of have the RFP elements sort of ready to go soon after?
We can have it
in
written,
advance of 2026.
but we
right?
can't start the process with the town until the budget is approved.
Right. Yeah, understood.
Yeah.
But potentially before Jan 1st.
The budget, I think, is set for approval on December 18th, so technically I can
okay.
submit it on December 19th. How much gets done on September 19th to January 2nd, I'm not sure I can speak to, but we would definitely, that's the hope, is that we'll at least have all our stuff done.
Fair point.
And in as soon as possible, that way we can hit the top of that queue.
Okay, perfect, thanks. My second question relates to your personal goal on the Corsa certification. I'm just curious if you have anything in mind. I know you've previously taken some executive management courses, and I didn't know if you wanted to stick with the same, institution, or if you haven't actually looked at any yet.
So I've done an initial kind of scan, and there's a wide variety of them. And so I am looking at whether or not I want to do an intensive or whether or not I want to do one that offers courses throughout the year. I think there's benefits to each one. I do want to move towards a certification rather than just a certificate. And so it is identifying, there is one organization, I can't remember exactly what it is, but they run kind of a hybrid where I think you do like 3 days intensive in person and then it's a series afterwards, which I think we're looking at. But there's nothing They still don't have their 2026 schedule up yet, which also is part of that play, is where it can kind of fit in. If the board has any experience with change management or knows of a solid program, I'd be interested in that. I have also put it out to my network to see if anybody has had a really great program that they found educational, but also easily implemented, right? Because that's also what I'm looking for. Is I've done ton where it's like it's all theory, and then you're back in your organization, kind of being like, I don't know what to do next.
Right.
And so I want some that is theoretical but practical at the same time.
Yep, totally fair. No, I appreciate it. I love the focus on change management there as well. So board, if anyone has any suggestions for Tara, she's all ears.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Are there any last questions on this item? Okay, seeing none, so I believe this is received for feedback. Does that mean it's coming back to us again for final approval?
Yeah, we'll make some changes. We'll take a look at a collaboration goal, might tweak, provide a definition of activations, just kind of flesh it out based on the feedback, and then it'll come back to the board for approval in November.
Perfect. All right, do we have anyone to move that? Salso, seconded by Avis. All in favor? That's approved. Thank you. All right, item 7.4, Halton Information Providers Update.
So as the board knows, Oakville Public Library is the lead partner in a joint venture with 4 other organizations for the Halton Information Providers, which provides the community services database. Also the info pods, the newcomer info pods that we did through the Immigration and Refugee Canada grant that we got a couple of years ago. And so we provide this information as part of our quarterly statistics, but once or twice a year we like to bring a full report. And as the board may recall, some members we've flagged in there, and it's been brought forward by the board that we are seeing some challenges around the numbers related to HIP and the community services database. And one thing that we've been working on, Monica's team has been working on, is doing a bit of a service review. We did bring in a consultant to kind of take a look at, the landscape. The information retrieval industry has been in flux for the past, probably 3 to 5 years. And we've seen some pretty significant changes. Pre-COVID, back in 2018, 2019, we would sell our data to different organizations who would then import it into their databases. That source of revenue has dried up just because of shifts with the creation of the provincial LIN. We work very closely with 211. 211's undergoing significant changes. In fact, Marcus is in Ottawa right now attending meetings around the future of 211 and how we may be able to play a role in that. We do feed our data up into 211. I think organizations are also in a process where we used to maintain data for them. Some of them have opted to take that back, to do it in-house. And also we're seeing real challenges related to AI and how the database is being used. You see our statistics are down in some areas, that they're maintaining in others. But what we're not getting statistics on is, this, it'll be interesting to kind of monitor, but when you're putting in queries into search engines now, you get AI at the top. That kind of gives you heads up. And some of that information is coming from our database, but we don't get any kind of statistic for it. So it's hard to measure how that is. We're also trying to determine through this service work, who is our target audience? Is it community groups? We do, the HIP team does training with everywhere from the Oakville team here at the region. They work with community groups, church groups, so that if people come to them with concerns or issues, that they know how to use the community services database in order to understand what the service landscape looks like for particular issues. We know that, if a family runs into financial struggles, they frequently go to their church. And so having, church staff be really aware of how to use the database allows them to help the individuals coming forward and direct them to different services that are available to them. Same with newcomers, different groups. I think, but we're seeing a decrease in individual, just accessing it through just searching. And so that's part of what the service strategy is really looking at. You kind of see it in here. And as well, the team will take that information and build a strategic plan, which will come to the board in February, about how we can potentially address some of these issues and what is the long-term role of HIP and the community services database, especially in a bit of a changing landscape. So it is in flux while we determine what that will look like in the future. I think there's some really great opportunities. I think there's some really solid challenges. So I'm excited to see what the HIP board comes up with, and then it'll come to the Oakville Public Library Board, and then we do expect it also go to the other 4 organization boards as well. Happy to take feedback. Monica wrote the report. There's lots of detail in there. So if you have questions, I'm hoping she'll be able to help me.
Okay, thanks. Rebecca?
I just want to say I love that, like, you've already noticed that in, public internet searches that, your data is showing up, because I think that's the primary goal of anybody producing any sort of data right now, is to preserve that data integrity, to make sure it's always being found like that. Because that's just the reality now. It's just such an easy way for people to search. I think everyone's going to like ChatGPT or something to search for their unique solution. Mm-hmm. So I love that that's a focus. And I hope that like there is still the ability to keep creating and fostering that data so that it is available in whatever form people need to find it. So thanks.
Yeah, and you've actually identified, one of our key challenges is, one thing that our team really prides itself on, and it's not just our team, it's all the, the record keepers at all the 5 organizations, is the standard in ensuring that data is as up to date as possible and is accurate. Because there's all kinds out there, but when you're just getting it as part of a search, you're not, people seem to be more and more willing to take what they receive in the internet is on face value.
Yes.
And they don't know where they're getting it from. And very few people, although AI will tell you,
Yeah.
very few people are clicking through the links to verify it.
Yeah.
So that is, again, another thing that we're trying to work on, is how, is it an education piece? Like, how do we really, leverage that? Yes, you can have 5 different sources of data, but we guarantee ours is accurate. And
Yeah.
how do you bring that forward, and how do you tell that story? And that is one of the challenges the team's going to have to try and figure out.
I think it is about like just understanding how people are finding data as well. I just did like a course on like the new SEO, which is like GEO, and it's just about like being where you can be found kind of thing. And so, I think it's just maintaining your data integrity. It's about understanding how people are finding it and just making sure you're there. It's like all great things. It's exactly, I think, what you've always done with the library and the services that you have. Even with like the bookmobile, it's about going where people are, right? Yeah. So I think this is just another example of just going to where people are and to get them the information that they need. So.
And it is that change, and I think that's also what the team is having a lot of conversations about is we use a database system that's old, potentially coming to end of life. There's another option that we were looking at, only that's now been given an end of life. This is the struggle, right? Is because if you've been on the community services database, it's not user friendly, particularly, and so that's another thing that we're looking at. Okay, do people don't access information? No, people don't want to search a database, and they want to access information an easier way. So what does that actually look like, and how can we adapt our systems to that? So yeah.
Awesome, thank you.
Thanks. Avis, go ahead.
So this probably is just a leading on from what you just said, but I'm trying to understand of the strategic priorities that were set out at the end of the report. The first point, transitioning from a primarily directory-based model to navigation-oriented partner-embedded approach. So I'm trying to visualize, what is the navigation-oriented partner-embedded approach?
That's a great question. I can guess, I think. I think I know what it means. No, but you do. Monica's been leading that project.
It is, in fact, what Tara has mentioned, from moving from the providing just the data from the database, or people search exactly for that information, into providing the navigation through that with how to find the information, but also how to to put together all that information into a service that you offer. So it's not only I'm looking for a specific, let's say, something health related. What exactly is the information that you are looking, but also connecting you with the people as well. So it's moving from that just data providing, which is dry, as people find, into connecting them directly with the resources and providing it in a package.
There is a movement, and we've had this conversation. I don't know if you've heard of social prescribing, but this is we're looking to implement a version of social prescribing, which has caught on both in the U.S. and in Europe, and there is the Canadian Center for Social Prescribing, and we actually I've had a couple conversations with the head of that in Toronto. And it isn't just, the idea being, and Monica jumping in, isn't just transactional. It isn't, I need to find out where a food bank is. It's, okay, you have this need, let me connect you with broader, it's almost like we do, in libraries, we do reader's advisory interviews, right? So you can come in and say you want a mystery. Well, I can offer you 50 different types of mystery. What mystery are you looking for? Because a cozy mystery versus, a deep, dark, true crime mystery, those are very different books and have very different audiences. So it's taking that kind of philosophy into, social services and really understanding that it's more about just connecting you to one particular thing when you actually may need a team. And so that's what Monica's talking about. It's you need the information, but you also need the support and the connection to it. And I think we're really looking at how we can kind of connect. And there are some organizations, Hamilton, Mississauga has a really great one. What's it called? The Window? Anyway, if you go to their central library, they have a whole section that does that level of work, right? So people come in, they have a need, they talk to an individual, and they kind of help them navigate. And so that's really what we're looking at is that navigation-oriented partner embedded is we don't necessarily have the capacity to offer that, but we may be able to connect with organizations, and through all the organizations and them connecting into our network may be able to provide that. And so that's, I think, the investigation that we're looking for.
Exciting. Thanks.
Highly recommend, look up social prescribing. It's really interesting.
I just wanted to add, to me, that sounds like, Google Maps exists and they did all the work. And then now there are apps that take advantage of the work that Google Maps has done to apply it to their own work. So to me, this is like you've built this database, and now you're looking for opportunities for people to take that information and apply it to real things. So I think that's also a really exciting maybe opportunity to do a social experiment to get some kids inventing new apps, to make this available, exploring partnerships with Sheridan College to see, if their entrepreneurs want to think of a way to get that information out. Because ultimately that's what it is. It's no longer about bringing people to the information. It's about getting it out to them. And it sounds like there's such amazing information, and technology will solve everything, but also hurt everything. So
we could. I think a hackathon would be kind of a fun thing to run.
I think a hackathon would be awesome, and I would love to help with that.
Yeah.
There we go. I just have a quick question. So, the mention of securing long-term funding beyond 2026, I just want to understand, are we really operating year to year right now, or is there an existing long-term agreement amongst the participating patrons, for lack of a better word, like the contributing organizations, or are we basically tied to everyone approving their funds every single year right now?
So the way it works is that the only one getting funding is OPL. Everybody else is embedded into their staffing. Mm-hmm. So for example, Burlington Public Library has, I don't know, I think it's 0.5 or 0.75 of a person who's dedicated to that work. So that is part of their budget every year. For us, it's a little bit different. We do get funding from the region, and that comes directly to us, and that offsets that lead role, because we have a couple full-time staff that are dedicated to that. We did have a multi-year agreement with the region. However, we have encountered some challenges with the region recently. We do have guaranteed funding existed. We were actually in negotiations with them to increase our funding, but they had some staff turnover, so we're back at square one. And so we have received information that our current level of funding is in the 2026 budget, but that is a conversation that we need to have with the region about how we can get some guarantee that at least that minimal function funding will continue, but also we do a lot of work for the region. And we offer a pretty significant service for the region. So that's the case that we were making, where we were in talks to increase that funding for us. And so we'd like to revisit that.
Yeah, well, I just think that's key, right? If we're looking at transitioning the entire service delivery, we absolutely need the long-term funding to be guaranteed at that point.
Correct.
So, okay. All right, thank you. Any other questions from the board? Okay, looking for a motion to receive the information. Rebecca, seconded by Salso. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. All right, item 7.5, fundraising plan report.
Okay, this one I'm just going to pass right to Monica.
Good evening. So I would like to provide a brief update on the 2025 fundraising performance at mid-year, along with an update on the new Central Library Capital campaign. In 2024, OPL surpassed its fundraising goal of 83,000, even if we had the fund development coordinator absent for a few months until we fulfilled that position. But building on that success, for 2025, the target was set as 137,000. At mid-year, we are at about 40% of that goal. A few highlights from that: sponsorships achieved 180%, including cash contributions from Oakville Community Foundation and the Burkett Family Fund. And I like to note the in-kind contributions, which we tried for this year, and our fund development coordinator was successful into securing over 16,000 from the Works and Canadian Tire to support our 2025 summer reading campaign. The grants are at 150% of the target, including funds for Fund for Gender Equity and Bronte BIA to support some programs we had over the summer. Friends at the Library are at 53%, performing as expected for mid-year. Personal giving reached 35% of the target at this moment. We expect, based on trends, to be more successful in the giving season. I would like to mention that for both 2024 winter and 2025 spring campaigns, they happened during the postal strike. So we hope for the 2024 winter not to have a postal strike. And endowment funds collection have begun already using the funds. You have seen no use, but in fact collections has used probably around 50% already, just they didn't make it to the mid-year. We are on track to fully realize that by year end. So overall, we are tracking well for 2025, considering that we have additional revenue anticipated for the giving season, and also the Give Oakville campaign is on the go in November, will support Indigenous initiatives this year. The new Central Library Capital campaign remains a key long-term fundraising priority. Phases 1 and 2 focused on policy updates, visibility, and donor engagement have been completed as planned in 2024 into early 2025. In Q2 2025, construction of new Central Library was delayed, temporarily paused for the structural review, which caused a delay on the design work that we needed for the campaign visuals. With that in mind, in response, we focused the remainder of a year on maintaining and increasing the donor stewardship and relationships, pursuing strategic grants, we have one on the go right now, and engaging a consultant to develop a capital campaign strategy, including goals, key audiences, messages, and address the concern that was expressed by the board for dual solicitation between the capital and annual fundraising. So these actions position us for a capital launch readiness once construction starts in 2026. With that said, I'll be happy to open the floor for questions.
Thank you, Monica. Any questions from the board? No? All right. Very thorough report then. Thank you.
Thank you. First for me.
So this is receive for information as well. Avis, would you like to move that? Awesome. Seconder? Rod? Last call for questions. Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. All right, 7.6, staff engagement survey results follow-up.
So at the beginning of the year, we brought a report to the board about the staff engagement survey, the strengths and weaknesses that kind of were brought up as part of that. And as part of that report, the board asked us to report back in Q3. I will apologize, we didn't hit Q3, but I'm not far away for it. So you're getting the work that we've done as of the end of Q3, and really just highlighting, you know, the different themes that we identified, you know, collaboration, communication, and then identified some of the key actions that we've taken and are taking in order to address that. We do understand that this isn't a one and done, and that's why you still see that as part of the 2026 goals, is this is what we've accomplished. We're going to continue to build on that, leading up to the next staff engagement survey, which is targeted for November of next year. And so at which point then we'll get a really good sense of how successful we've been, other than, you know, the touch points that we put in place as a result of the actions. So we kind of identified, we pulled out 3 of the key. There are others, but we felt these were probably the 3 most significant for each of those 3 pillars to bring to the board that we're currently actioning. So happy to take questions or thoughts around what we're doing.
Thanks. Before I ask the board for questions, I'm wondering if you can clarify how the driver scores are generated. So that's on page 2, the first data page of the attached report.
So those were taken directly from the staff engagement report that was done by the consultant whose name I'm forgetting at this exact moment. So I'm happy to resend that out to the board, the summary report about how they correlated all of those. Yes.
That's what I'm looking at.
Yep.
Okay. I'm just wondering if, you know, if driver scores, maybe it represents the extent to which each component affects the overall engagement. Is that a reasonably correct interpretation?
Sorry?
Well, the driver score, this isn't, because these scores don't necessarily correlate directly to, you know, data that I'm seeing deeper in the report, right? So
They do group them, yeah.
Pardon?
Yeah, and then they do group and rank them.
yeah, no, I understood the grouping with bottom, middle, and top box, but well, since we're already, you know, deep in the weeds, if we look at, so executive leadership, right? It says the driver score is 33%. But you know, that doesn't line up with any of the scores that on the questions pertaining directly to executive leadership. So I'm just trying to understand, is that more an indicator of how much the component executive leadership affects the overall employee's engagement?
That I don't have that information.
No, okay. And the reason I'm asking is because I think if, you know, that maybe affects some of the, you know, some of the outcomes that we're looking at pursuing, right? Like the rebuild trust and leadership, obviously a big one. That assumes that this is actually showing a lack of trust in leadership, and I'm not, I'd like to see more explanation on how the data were collected and also what correlations there are between different questions before we leap straight to that kind of an action.
Yeah, so I can reach out to the town to reach out to the consultant and see if they can clarify that for us. Did you have a question about how it was collected?
Well, sort of the, you know, maybe the actual questions, but also just that very first page, driver scores. I want to understand that better. I don't know if anyone else on the board understands this more intuitively than I do.
So the correlation between the drivers versus the
Like
questions.
how is a
with
driver
those-
score generated? What
Okay.
does it actually mean? Because I'm not convinced it means what that first action is seeming to say it means. That's all. Sorry for jumping the gun. I thought that might be a clarification, but it's not really. So I'll ask if there are any other questions from the board, and then maybe we can come back to it.
I don't understand what you're saying.
Okay.
Can you explain it again?
Sure. So on page 2, this executive leadership, department collaboration, et cetera, I mean, when you look through the individual questions, those numbers don't come from anywhere specific that I can see. So I want to understand what a driver score is and how it's actually being generated from the underlying data. So we may need to have the consultant come in here. I don't want to leap to the conclusion that this implies a massive lack of trust in leadership, because that's not what I'm reading from the rest of the report.
I would flag that none of the items are they're concerns, and we definitely need to address them, but I wouldn't necessarily classify it as significant, because you're right that the 33 is that, but if you do look at it, like it's still not the majority. Yeah, so the individual scores are based on the individual responses, and then they've somehow correlated it up in order to create the drivers, and that's your question, is what that calculation is.
Yeah, what does a driver score mean?
Good.
Yeah, okay. Because
I can clarify that.
okay. Well, that's just the variance is 16 percentage points lower than the total organization, which is Oakville, on that particular driver. But quite frankly, if I was looking at employee engagement, I would expect immediate coworker relationships, culture, environment, supervisor, I would expect those all to rank much higher than executive leadership in terms of what's engaging me on a day-to-day basis, right, as an employee. So I just, that's all. I just wanted to understand what was generating that better. Celso, did you have a question? Yeah, I thought, yeah, please.
I
Thank you.
I have a question, but I can venture a guess. It would feel as though that's the average of the green bar of the questions that make up that category. So executive leadership has 2 questions. The green parts are 38%, 27%. The average between them is 33. I did it mentally for a couple of others, and it sort of seems to match. You follow me?
I do. That's, yeah, that makes
Total gas, though.
mathematical sense. Yeah. Okay, I might have to spend a bit more time with it, but if you could maybe circulate or just get in touch with the consultant.
I can
maybe?
validate for
Yeah,
sure. Yep.
that would be great. Thank you.
As well as the reasoning about why they choose to calculate it that way.
Pardon?
Along with why they choose to calculate it that
Right,
way.
okay, thanks. So do you want to go ahead with your
I do have a question, yes.
Thanks.
With regards to the actions that you outlined to address the bottom 3 areas, just do you have any evidence, feedback, or any early indication that of their effectiveness? Are they working?
Yeah, I mean, I think, and Caitlin and Monica can jump in, because they've had a lot of conversations with their teams all the way down through, right? Because that was that's the challenge with the survey, right? Is people choose a score, but what that means to them is different from person to person. So in the past, we've made changes, but we made changes based on what we assumed they meant, which actually wasn't hitting the mark, is what we've discovered. So how do we have better conversations? And so Monica and Caitlin and themselves, as well as their teams, have really kind of introduced that continuous listening strategy about, okay, how do we, ask them directly about some of these questions, but then also as part of individual one-on-ones and team meetings, how are we continuing to do those touch bases and those check-ins? And so I think, they've seen some real positive feedback and some exciting responses from staff where they do feel like they're being heard in a new way. I don't know if either of you want to speak to that. Would you say that that's accurate? One of you?
I would just add as well, we're learning to have better conversations, understanding, a suggestion might be brought forward. We can't actually implement it, but we can explain more transparently what goes into those considerations and why we might not be able to influence. So we are working on how do we understand the feedback better, the impacts that staff are trying to bring forward. How do we have those conversations in a way that staff feel really comfortable to have that conversation, to express their concerns and know that they've been heard? And how do we map out all the different ways that those conversations happen so that it's not just putting it all into the survey, but through all of those meetings and one-on-ones and opportunities to engage, it all collectively informs us. And then some of the other goals speak to how we can be more transparent in communicating the decisions and the decision-making frameworks and the rationales. So I think we are engaging in conversations with more clarity, and it's a work in progress.
I would like to add just one more aspect further than that. So a listening strategy is one thing, but also working together through solutions. So that's something that we've done as well, working with all staff in different groups, depending on how many we can have good discussions. But it's also, this is what we understood. But further, are these actions really fulfilling what you expect? Or if not, what do you think? Let's work together through that and see what we can do as an organization, but works for all of us. So we took that a step further to work through some solutions as well together.
And we're also working on just clarifying expectations of roles, because there is a sentiment that staff give us stuff and then we action it. But it is a partnership, and understanding that we can't fix what we don't know, and then bring it forward in a survey, but not telling us or having conversations with us. And so, we are working through like, what are those barriers? And not everybody is comfortable in speaking up in an all staff meeting. So what are the different avenues, the one-on-ones, the touch points that offer a variety of different communication, but that's not getting lost, right? Because the more communication channels you have, it can be a bigger challenge to kind of like manage it all. So that's a lot of the work that we're currently doing. So we've seen some good conversations around that. We did put out the organizational structure procedure that relates to the working groups, the employee resource groups, and there is growing excitement around that. I think the success of our diversity, equity, and inclusion employee resource groups, they've just renamed themselves the IDEA Council, and as well as our reader services have been really successful, and I think staff are really engaged, and speaking to that collaboration, being on a team with other people and be able to bring their ideas forward allows them to just think in a new way, and I think they're excited about that. And we're launching a workplace wellness employee resource group this fall as well, in order to, again, give them an avenue and a voice in helping us understand what they're looking for in terms of work-life balance and helping them adapt and cope with the world that we're in and the growing needs that they face as library workers.
So follow on, if I may. So so those people management strategies that you described, being transparent and engaging them to find a solution, not just here's what you're going to do. Those are fantastic strategies, but applying it across the board is probably the challenge, because you need to get every manager to understand and it doesn't come naturally, right? As a people, you need to sort of have some experience to do that. But you have a tactic to get this idea and practice rolled out?
Yeah, I think we have a couple different tactics related to it. I'll mention some, and then you guys can fill in. We are working with I can't remember the name of the trainer right now, in order to how to have better conversations and create that psychological safety with staff, and recognizing that somebody can come forward with a suggestion, and how do we manage that? Because some of them, it might be a great suggestion, it may not be at all feasible. It isn't just thanks for your feedback and then off you go, right? There's a communication loop that needs to happen. As Caitlin said, isn't just no, it's we can't do that, but why don't we work together or think about something that could, like, what is the problem, versus coming forward with a solution? Like, there's other conversations that you can have, and helping, you know, the management team have that better conversation and understand that if somebody's bringing forward a suggestion, the problem that they're trying to solve may be different than what the suggestion is. And so how do you actually dig in and then work as well? You know, we're even looking at, you know, come January, and the leaders don't know this yet, but if they watch this, they will. We're looking to introduce a book club. And again, identified a leadership book for us all to go through together. So, and I'll open it up to see if they have, because I know they're working very closely with their teams as well. It isn't just a one, it's a couple and squeeze in between. But did either of you want to? You don't have to. No? Yeah?
It is really a collaborative effort. So the managers do understand. They went through the same process that staff went through as well. So we worked with management as well in terms of their feedback, and also looking at staff feedback and how that works together as well. So they are on board. So we really work together with leadership team and staff to move things forward, and to make sure that clarity, as Caitlin mentioned, for example, when we provide decisions, we provide context. So that comes from EMT, but also comes from managers to staff. So we make sure that goes further. And we work with each other. It was like, okay, you didn't say that, so let's work together to make sure that we follow through. So it's a collaboration effort, really.
And Monica brings up a good point, and that really speaks to what you saw, the executive leadership, right? Is what we saw as a gap is, you know, staff from conversations, you know, they get a lot of their direct communication through their supervisor and their manager, and they aren't necessarily making the connection that that's coming down through us. And same, you know, they don't think that we know what's happening because they're not realizing that the supervisor or manager are communicating that up. And so we are having broader conversations about how we can help make that connection, that I know what's going on in the branches. Like, I know when somebody had a slip and fall. I know that that's happening. And so how can we communicate that or build that trust in staff that you may not see us? That doesn't mean we don't know, because your leaders see it and they're telling us. And then we're communicating, and that flow of information, because it just isn't feasible for all of us to be out at all the branches all the time. And so how do we build that trust, that, you know, or give them the philosophy in which how we're making decisions, and so they can believe in the philosophy and that we're abiding by that. And so it's an interesting problem to work through.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, also. Yeah, on that, I mean, I really appreciate, obviously, you've listened. It's more nuanced than, you know, me just saying, oh, well, don't hang too much on this one particular number, and you've obviously built a framework around that. So I applaud the work that you've done there, and obviously, you know, power distance and communication distance is always a struggle, like the bigger an organization gets. So that's, you know, that's to be expected on some level. So definitely great to give that clarity to the teams. I wonder if you might also just ask the consultant if there are any other correlations to be, you know, to take note of, and simple examples. If someone had, you know, rated poorly on coworker relationships and supervisor relationship, you'd also expect them, you know, to see career advancement might be low or culture might be low, right? Things like that. Those are really obvious ones. Maybe someone working at North Park in the temporary facility finds it too cold, too noisy, whatever. So look for those if there are branch-specific flags, if there are maybe career stage flags, right? Young, middle, late stage career, and just see if there's anything else you could tease out.
Yeah, and it is how they break it up. And you're not wrong. There are some that almost seem to be in direct opposition to each other. That this score's high, but this score's low. But you'd think they'd be connected. We do get it broken out more. Like, we get broken out by the different areas wherever there's there is a threshold for individuals. So there are some departments that get merged just because they're small departments and it's easy to identify. And so we can kind of get a sense for branches as well as departments. And you're right, there are different themes depending on that. Okay. In previous years, they did break it out a bit more in terms of like staff type. part-time versus full-time, and they didn't do that this time around. So that's feedback that we provided to the town, because I think it was helpful for us to get it cut a little bit differently, but they just didn't do it this time.
Okay, fair enough. Also, I want to say, so I'd spot checked a few, and you're, as far as I can tell, you're bang on. It's the top 2 box average that feed into those driver scores, so I'm satisfied on where that comes from now. Yep. Thanks. Any other questions from the board on this one? Rod, go ahead.
When is the next employee survey likely to be done?
It'll be done next November. They're every 2 years.
Okay. And does the consultant have suggestions about, you know, the non-responders, the nearly 30 people who didn't respond at all, about why, and is it perhaps that they're worried about privacy or whatever, and maybe there's a way to talk about this before it's released so that the response rate grows?
Yeah, we definitely work with them on that. We have the highest. So the town is lower. Different departments in the town are significantly lower. We are high across all municipalities. So we're proud of that. Would I love 100%? Absolutely. And do I want to grow it every year? I do think it is over normally 2 weeks. It normally gets extended to 3. That covers it. So it is the majority of staff. You know, we do have casual staff that may not participate because they only take a shift once a month and may not participate in that. It also it only occurred to me recently that I don't answer it. And so, you know, I'm one of those ones because it is expected. And so now we should make sure that everybody answers it, because it is a number, right? It didn't occur to me that I would also answer it. But I am counted in the staff count. And so how do we make sure that, you know, are there members of like the leadership team who don't answer it because they think it's for the core staff? And so that's a piece that we might want to do better with for next time and see if that changes it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Pardon me. Thanks, Rod. Any other questions? Could I have someone move this, please? Rebecca and Celso? All in favor? That's carried. Forgive me, could I ask for a brief recess? Maybe 5 to 10 minutes? Okay, thanks. Thank you for the indulgence. We are back in session. So we are moving on to item 7.7, the Customer Code of Conduct Policy.
And I'm going to pass this one over to Caitlin.
So the Customer Code of Conduct policy does appear to be largely edited, but for the most part, it is a restructuring to better reflect our expectations for the use of our spaces, the ways that customers access services. Really, we're trying to strengthen and emphasize that role, that the library plays a role as a community hub where we're creating a welcoming, inclusive environment. So we are trying to shift the focus of the policy to note the shared responsibility of staff, of all customers in creating that environment, and really trying to be clear about our expectations while still being able to enforce a firm line about unacceptable behavior. So you'll see that the policy has been restructured to promote that values-driven culture and shared responsibility. I'm happy to take questions and feedback.
Any questions from the board? No, I think we're all satisfied. No, I appreciate, the clarification and the changes. So this is to be received for feedback. So can I get a motion to receive the report? Rebecca? Avis? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you, Caitlin. Okay. Item 7.8, Occupational Health, Safety, and Workplace Violence Policy.
So we're required to bring this to the board for approval every year. So what you have before you is a slightly updated policy. The town just did a full review. The town updated and approved theirs in September. So there have been no significant changes, but just some inclusion of some more inclusive language in terms of how the policy is written. So it's coming before the board for feedback.
Cecil.
So the previous policy we just looked at, it's very clear in terms of what happens if you don't comply.
Yeah.
This one is silent on that. I wonder if that's on purpose or if there's an opportunity to add that in.
Yeah, no, I can clarify that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, Rod?
Little minor thing on grammar. I noticed under policy statement in the second paragraph, we scratch out his or hers and we put in one's, one apostrophe S. It seems to me that's a bit awkward and we could just say their, must provide their own. Like, it's much more common usage than one's. One's is very formal English, and it's got a correct referral back to the singular person, and it's also gender neutral. So I would wonder why it would say one's instead of their.
So we took that directly from the town's updated policy. That's one of the changes that they made, and we make every attempt to align where possible with the verbiage. So I can go back to the town and clarify exactly where that came from.
Okay, thank you. And then the other point I'd like to make is, I know this is policy and it's supposed to be broader. Excuse the grape, I'm eating. But it doesn't make any reference to some pretty nitty-gritty things. For example, there's no reference to first aid kits on site. There's no reference to staff being trained. You know, usually an organization at the branch level, for example, would have a staff member trained on first aid. Every year or two, you have another person go for it. There's no mention of defibrillators. I know that's a specific piece of equipment, but there's people get trained on those as well. And somebody might come back and say, well, that's too specific, that's a regulation type thing. But I read up on this before this meeting, and actually it says at the policy level, it's actually good practice to reference things like first aid kits. Because the Health and Safety Committee, when it goes around, should be making sure there's a health and safety kit and that it's up to date and it doesn't have, you know, Band-Aids in it from 1995 that may have lost their stickiness and that sort of thing. That's sort of standard stuff. And I think this would be a stronger policy if it had that sort of reference. So I don't know if you can talk to the town about that too, if this is reflecting theirs, but I think it's an omission, and I think it would be a better policy if it had those sorts of things in it.
No, I mean, I can absolutely assure you that that is part of the procedures that fall underneath the policy, and all of that is in place as per the legislation. I can certainly go back to the council and to the town to make that. I will say that they just approved it. It isn't up for approval until next year, so they won't be updating it. We do try to align. So my question is that a board request for us to look at embedding that into this policy?
Yeah, I appreciate you know, the pardon me, the thoroughness, Rod, and you said you've seen it. You've seen other examples of that where it's good practice to have it in a policy. Personally, I'm satisfied, you know, with the employer responsibilities. Actually, there's a typo there, responsibilities. I'm satisfied that's sort of encapsulated there, and of course, you know, as regulations may change when we're out of cycle, we shouldn't necessarily need to revisit the policy every time a regulation changes, provided that that the right people are staying abreast of that. Are there any other thoughts among members of the board? Rebecca?
I would just say that if it was approved at the town level, that it must also be across like all the recreation centers and community centers and stuff, and that's where you'd really want that. Not that you wouldn't want it anywhere, but I'm also satisfied that I think it covers everything, and that if there's deeper like instructions and procedures, that it should be okay.
Give us.
I do find often that some organizations will put something as a policy that is really a procedure and vice versa. So I'm satisfied that if the items are covered off in a procedure, which is where you get the more detailed nitty-gritty material anyway, then I'm good with the way it's written.
Okay, maybe I'll come back to Rod and see if you had any,
No, I
any
have
further.
nothing more to say. I can see I'm in the minority, so I'll cede.
No, valid points, and I think we're confident and comfortable that it's captioned in the procedures and by the staff diligence on a day-to-day basis. So,
And I can provide that feedback to the town.
okay. Separately, I would support Rod's inquiry about changing one's own health to their own health, but I know you're going to check with the town anyway on the terminology there. Are there any other questions or remarks from the board? Okay, seeing none, I'll see if there's a motion for receipts. Rod, is there a seconder? Avis, you seconded a lot tonight, Avis. Need to get you moving some. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Okay. All right, item 7.9, 2025 board evaluation.
So during the board's last update of their bylaws, they implemented a board evaluation policy, which requires the board to undergo a self-evaluation in November of each year. Last year was the first year we did it, so I did bring forward the survey that we distributed out to the board last November for feedback to see whether or not those questions still suit. Are there any changes or additions that the board would like? Following that, I will send it out. And then bring the feedback back to the board as part of the November board meeting.
Questions or comments from the board? Okay. Seeing none, Avis would like to move this for receipt. Is there a seconder? I have to look this way. Salso. Okay. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. All right.
So expect that in your emails next week.
Perfect. Thank you. And item 7.10 then, the CEO update.
Okay. I've got visuals, 16 Mile. From the outside. Oh, the inside's coming along. So starting off with the 16-mile construction project, both the interior and outdoor furniture have been ordered. The exterior curtain wall and glazing, so the glass outside is almost nearing completion or might actually be complete. This is about a week old. So that's very exciting. We're very excited that the library will finally be fully enclosed. The mayor and council tour is tentatively planned for December and January. I am strongly encouraging the town to also invite the board to participate in that. So once they solidify a date, we'll also send it out to you. If you're unable to make it, once we're a bit further along, we'll invite the board out, probably closer to opening date. We're also potentially looking at doing some sneak peeks in there. So if you can't make this one, there will be another opportunity, hopefully, to get you in before we actually open. The town is working on a grand opening video starting in 2026. So we're excited to see some of that opening work start to get done and start to build that excitement in the community for the branch opening. I do have a number of slides. So yes, you can see it's coming along with the different colors. The library is that front portion, the north portion of that piece. It's going to be. I'm really excited to see when it's done. I haven't been there up in person in a couple weeks, but just how the light kind of hits all those colors and kind of brings it to life. So that's looking down towards Dundas. So the library is that front piece, all that glass and glazing in place. I'm really excited to see it alive. And so we have some internal shots. So this is in the library looking towards what will be the entrance. So looking towards the parking lot, the front entrance is over to the corner. You see those two small meeting rooms up at the top, as well as the mezzanine. And then the quiet study is over in the corner upstairs. And I think the next one shows the backspace. So looking out towards Nayagawa, that is almost primarily stacks. The children's area will be back there to the right. And then for those of you on the art selection committee, you can see that the drywall that's going up, that's where the art is going to go, is up that big wall up there. So that will help you visualize, hopefully when we get some artists in to provide ideas about what to go there. So it's coming along. We're very excited about it. So new central projects, there's none a ton to report on that. We continue to work with facility services on a report and the options that we're bringing forward, fleshing that out with the architect. Again, to come to the board in January. Hopefully the board will make a recommendation that'll then go to council for consideration in February, our current timelines. Next slide. So the newspaper digitization project is going really, really well. That's all continuing. Phase 2 is 90% scanned, and then 35% is uploaded. So we're definitely on track for the digitization work to be done at the end of November, and then those other pieces. So we're still on target for a full completion date in May 2026. Once we get through a bit more of this, then we'll turn our attention a bit more strongly to that next step and really looking at what do we do now that it's digitized and bring some decisions for the board about how we move forward with that. Next slide. So we had a fantastic summer reading, in part, I think, because of the work that our fund development officer did to bring such great prizing for the Works and Canadian Tire, which donated fantastic prizes. Kids were really excited to get all the different pieces that they got, and they held them at Central at the front office, and what is this? I want some of these things. It was fun to watch them come and pick it up. So overall, we had well over 2,000 registrants, over 1,500 new library cards. We did see 24% of all items checked out. We could directly associate to summer reading, so that was fun to kind of see. And then 93 prizes were awarded in there. So definitely set a banner year for summer reading, and we're really excited to grow that for next year. Next slide. So Remembrance Day, we do have a number of Remembrance Day programs I wanted to highlight. We're doing paper poppies through our creation zone at Iroquois Ridge. We're doing a tween STEAM lab. They can sew their own poppy, family story time that related to Remembrance Day, as well as a session with an author and naval historian, really covering hopefully all the age groups to engage with Remembrance Day and make sure that it's marked appropriately. Next slide. So Library of Things, the board will remember that you did have a number of questions about the Library of Things out of the Q2 performance measures about why some of those stats were lower, and in part, some of that is just the work that we're doing to create a new framework, to reorganize them, to restructure as they grow. To date, we had some and it kind of worked, but we are looking to expand, and it's significantly when we open 16 Mile, there's quite an expansion to it. So Monica and her team really went back to be like, okay, how can we streamline and better categorize some of the work related to this in order to speed up some of that processes. We have a number of partnerships that we're working with to bring some of these new items in place. And so we're excited to have that, and you will see a significant increase in some of those things related to 16 Mile. But I think I spoke about this last time with the pickleball kits is a new one, and they've been really popular related to that. And so the next big push out of Library Thing items will come with the launch of 16 Mile. Next slide. So Woodside Branch, where teens can be elusive, and so we are trying different strategies at different branches in order to engage with them. Similar to what we were talking about earlier with 16 Mile, we have discovered with teens, sometimes passive programming works a lot better than active programming. And so, Woodside's really taken that to heart and looked to create an initiative that makes them feel like they have more control or a stronger welcoming space for them. And so they did offer a space where there's puzzles and games, coloring activities, and different passive activations that they can do. And so far we've seen some great interactions with the offerings that they're having. So I'm excited to see how that continues to grow and how that might be able to roll out to other branches. So next slide. Truth of Reconciliation. So we hosted a Truth of Reconciliation event at QEP that was very well attended. I think we had like over 100 attendees at it, and you can just see the success of it. So we were really excited to be able to bring that level of programming in order to mark National Truth and Reconciliation Day this year. Next slide. So Staff Development Day, just a reminder that it is November 7th. Board members are invited to attend. If you wish to attend, let me know. Bill has said that he will attend, so that is fantastic. I have a job for him. Staff Awards and Long Service Awards will be in the afternoon. So those of you who attended in the past, we had it in the morning. This time we're actually having it in the afternoon. We're going to end on a high note with the Staff Awards and the Long Service Recognition. Thank you to those who stepped forward to participate as the Staff Award Selection Committee. I'd love another one, so if anybody else wants to do that, we do have 2. I can make do with 2. It's always nice to have 3. As part of that, feel free, reach out, let me know, and we'll look to set a date in the coming weeks to go over the nominees. Next slide. It is coming up to everybody's favorite time of year with the Santa Claus Parade. So this year it is November 15th at 9 a.m. This year's theme is Snow Much Fun, and we do invite board members to participate with us. Hopefully the weather will be the same as this day, because it was fantastic. So if any board member is interested in joining us, just let me know. It is so much fun. And I think Avis, you've participated. Bill has participated in the past. They're 20 people deep walking around, and it's having them scream. It's the library. It's the library. It's the highlight of my year with that. And so we've actually expanded what we're going to do. We think we'll probably have like approximately about 20 staff, and we hand out stickers, and we have big OPL library cards, and yeah, we're gonna have a lot of fun this year. So please, if you're around, come out and join us. Next slide. And so we did have our 130th anniversary kickoff on October 1st. It was exciting. Jeff and Rod were there representing the board. We did have some great attendance from our community partners, as well as those in attendance at Glen Abbey. We had that big cake, and then we had what, like 140 cupcakes, and we timed it perfectly because we ended when the schools got out for lunch, and then they descended. I'm pretty sure some of the teachers weren't as thrilled with us in the afternoon, but it was great, and there was great conversations being had. Also at the celebration, I'm not sure if you've seen it online. We released it in the last day or so. We released our video, but I do have it here for you guys to watch. So.
Think you know your Oakville Public Library? 130 years of stories, learning, and community. And we're just getting started. A space where bold ideas come to life. Stories shared, voices honored. And a new chapter unfolding. 130 years of Oakville stories. Now it's your turn. Discover your library.
So I thought that kind of honored what we've kind of done over the next 30 years, but also setting the tone for where we'd like to go in the future. So we've been really thankful that since we put it out on our socials, I'm seeing it all over the place, and people are sharing it, which is lovely to see, and the comments underneath it are really, really great. So I'm happy to take any questions on anything that was in the slideshow or report.
Are there questions or remarks from board members? So.
I was just impressed by that picture of the inside looking out the glass. The amount of natural light that comes in, like there's no like artificial light on that picture, I presume.
The picture of 16 Mile?
Yes. there is one particular picture that's like from the inside looking out
Yeah.
with the glass all around.
Yeah.
And it's broad daylight, and the amount of light, it's just unbelievable. So
Yeah.
I think it's going to be amazing what it's going to feel like inside on a bright day.
Yeah, we're really hoping
Yeah.
so. Yeah. Yeah, that much glass is going to be beautiful.
Yeah, it's really exciting to see all of those images. Thank you. Yeah. Any other comments from the board? No. Thank you very much, Tara. Yeah, a lot to be excited about, I think. Way to go. Keep it up. All right. We need to receive the CEO update for information. Avis, would you like to move that? And seconded by Rebecca. All in favor? That's carried. All right, we have no confidential discussion items. Are there any other matters of new business to come before the board? No? Okay, I will announce that our next meeting then, item 10, our next meeting will be here at 7 o'clock p.m. on Thursday, November 20th. And finally, I'll look for a motion to adjourn the meeting. So, seconded by Avis. All in favor? That's carried. All right, thank you very much for all the presentations. Thank you to anyone who was watching the live stream. We appreciate your interest in your local public library, and this meeting is now closed.